Welcome to the Senate Finance Subcommittee on Law Enforcement and Public Safety. We'll get started here in a second. On the agenda, we have up first the Attorney General, then we'll move right into Public Safety. Joe, are you going to start off, or?
Chairman, I'd be glad to defer to the Colonel to begin his presentation.
Okay, well, Colonel, do you want to go first then?
I'll never turn that down, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.
First, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the members of this committee for the opportunity to testify on behalf of my budget. I'm sensitive of your time, and I'll keep this as short as possible. These are unprecedented times for law enforcement across the United States. And the Rhode Island State Police and the Department of Public Safety has provided tremendous support to the citizens of the state every day, no matter the event or circumstances. I will tell you I'm extremely proud of the men and women of the State Police and the entire DPS agency. The State Police has always done more with less. That's something we took great pride in since I've come on. But more than any other time in history, the State Police and Public Safety has been asked to do more with less, sometimes not typical duties and responsibilities of law enforcement. Over the past 30 years, this agency's responsibilities have grown to respond to the needs of the state, but budgetarily have never been able to significantly increase the workforce. Let me go over some of the highlights of what I'm talking about. The COVID-19 response was something none of us had ever seen. Anything that was asked of this agency, from working the borders during the out-of-state travel ban, to assisting with social gathering size limits, to guarding testing facilities, vaccines, whatever was needed, the Rhode Island State Police and DPS as a whole stepped up. The Public Order Platoon partnered with the Rhode Island National Guard and expanded training and response to keep the state safe during the most volatile of times. Our Financial Crimes Unit has responded to and assisted over 87,000 victims of DLT fraud since last year at this time. About 1 month ago, the State Police formed the Special Victims Unit, and it was created to respond to a significant increase in sexual assault cases. So far in 2021, the Detective Bureau has fielded more than 300 sexual assault complaints. Prior to the Special Victims Unit, the Major Crimes Unit handled these type of sexual assaults, but it was obvious that they needed increased training and infrastructure to give a more detailed investigation. The Capitol Police and the sheriffs, they were called upon to assist with the health screening during COVID at all Rhode Island buildings, state buildings. They processed the COVID-positive screened prisoners statewide. And security at all state buildings during civil unrest, we could not have done it without the Capitol Police and the sheriffs. E911. When COVID first became an issue about a year ago, the director of E911 was contacted, and how could we ensure that we could run 911 throughout this pandemic. The decision was made to split the public safety answering points, or call centers, in two to ensure that it was adequately staffed during the pandemic, so that if one went down because of illness, the other could stay open. Implemented security, storage, and switch upgrades, and training for all staff to prepare the implementation of emergency medical dispatch in June was also completed. Let's discuss some of the numbers here in the state of Rhode Island as it relates to the state police. As I stated in the beginning, the Rhode Island State Police has always done more with less, and we still take great pride in that. But it's important for me to show you this comparison to the states that surround us, Massachusetts to the north and Connecticut to our south. I'm in close contact with the superintendent of the Massachusetts State Police, Colonel Mason, and Colonel Malikas from the Connecticut State Police, who have provided valuable resources to us in our time of need. But these numbers speak for themselves. In Rhode Island, there are 245 troopers per million people. That is our entire workforce of Rhode Island State Troopers, and that's the largest we've been in a long time. The Massachusetts State Police currently has about 2,200 to 2,300 troopers. They're anticipated to grow to 2,700 troopers. There are about 7 million people in that state, so they have 385 troopers per million in the state of Massachusetts. In Connecticut, 3.7 million people reside in that state. Connecticut State Police has 1,000 troopers currently. They're going up to 1,300 to 1,400 troopers, their maximum staff, which would bring them to about 325 troopers per million in their state. The state of Delaware, which has about the same population as Rhode Island, 950 plus thousand, has 725 troopers, covering a landmass about double the size of Rhode Island. If you look at this slide, the slide to the left, the State Police sworn strength. In yellow, those are the years that we recruited and brought on a State Police Academy. And you can see that the number goes up, but within a year or two, the number goes down substantially. Because historically, we've always recruited and held a training academy when we needed them the most. And as a result, mandatory retirements reduced the size of whatever additional personnel we took on within 1 of 2 years of that academy graduating. Those numbers speak for themselves. I'm here before you to ask for a 28-person recruit class in 2023. And you could see on the graph on the right that number would still bring us below the numbers from over about 10 years ago. Once again, we have 245 sworn members. 7 are leaving this year that we know about for retirements or resignations. 45 additional are eligible to retire now, the 1994 and 1997 classes. 17 of those are mandatory retirement next year, and 47 more are eligible. Let me correct myself. 47 are eligible to retire if you include the 2000 class. Next slide, please. The governor's budget, we have 593.6 full-time employees in DPS wide. We're requesting to go up to 622.6. We have 40 vacancies. So really, we only have 553.6 full-time employees right now on DPS, even though we have 593 that are authorized. The state police has 13 vacancies from the current number, and the sheriffs are down 19 people. The governor's budget that is proposed for a 28-person recruit class is a great start to get the agency's strength to the level we need. But we must be committed to continuous recruitment and hiring. Also in the governor's budget proposal, we have met the $300, we committed to meet the $300,000 reduction in overtime in this budget through proper management of each overtime assignment. I assure this committee in House Finance that every hour of overtime that is requested has to go through the chain of command, and ultimately it ends to me. And we discuss it to see if there's a prudent use of our resources. I'm watching this overtime as if it's my own money. Each shortage of a trooper that either resigns or retires where we do not have, we cannot backfill them, would create approximately $120,000 annually in overtime to fill the shifts. Despite the increased number of sworn member vacancies in fiscal year 2021, the overtime has remained relatively flat compared to 2020. And once again, it's a commitment of mine to manage a very responsible budget. Also in the governor's budget, there's in the fiscal year 2022 to 26, capital budget includes a general obligation bond for the construction of a southern barracks at $35 million. We would consolidate two of the barracks into one. If CARES Act funding were to be available, this critical infrastructure is a top priority. Portsmouth Barracks. Portsmouth Barracks closed in 2012. I was the patrol commander of the Wickford Barracks and the Portsmouth Barracks. And it's been operational from 1925, when the state police was founded, to 2012, but we had to close it due to resource, personnel constraints, and also because the physical condition of the Portsmouth Barracks deteriorated to the point where it is now. We need to have patrols back in the East Bay, and it's something we've been striving to do. Although it is not in the budget now, I'm trying to get an allocation of resources to spend approximately $2 million to renovate the Portsmouth Barracks, to put 13 troopers in that barracks to patrol the East Bay. New vehicles. Over 65% of the fleet that we have is more than 5 years old and over 100,000 miles. The governor's budget assumes 30 vehicles per year for the state police and 7 vehicles per year for the sheriffs over a 5-year capital plan. The sheriff and Capitol Police, we will continue for recruitment and academy training to fill the vacancies that occur within their ranks. E911 technology investments. Emergency medical dispatch will go live on June 22nd. There was a delay in getting it to this point, and that was because, once again, of our infrastructure issues. We did not have the capability of adding emergency medical dispatch without upgrading our hard lines and our infrastructure within 911. I'm happy to say it has been done. The next generation 911 and aerial overhead pictometry upgrade is also in this budget. The State Police consolidated Southern Barracks. This is, let me explain what these barracks represent to us. In 1930, the Lincoln Barracks was built. 1931, the Hope Valley Barracks. Also that same year, the Wickford Barracks. And by 1934, the Portsmouth Barracks was completed. The only barracks to be renovated, to any extent, is the Lincoln Barracks. And that was done through Google funds. The Hope Valley, Wickford Barracks, and Portsmouth Barracks, which is now closed, were never renovated at all. And if you walked in there today, you would notice the exact same doors and hinges and everything else that was there in 1930 when they were built. They were built in the 30s during the Great Depression. There were no such thing as highways. They really do not represent a modern patrol area or represent the professionalism of the Rhode Island State Police. We're in desperate need of replacing these facilities. I read the history books on when these were built. There were 8 to 10 troopers assigned to each one of these barracks. They're really houses with jail cells. Troopers used to live there. We now have 28 to 30 troopers per barracks working there, and the garages were renovated. Well, I wouldn't use the word renovated. They were changed so that troopers could put desks in there many years ago. This new facility on the right would be a Route 95 at Exit 7, centrally located in the southern area of the state. We could house 60 troopers covering from Connecticut to Jamestown, and then the Portsmouth Barracks would pick up from there, and the Lincoln Barracks could pick up from Route 117 north. This land was generously donated by the Rhode Island Department of Transportation to the Rhode Island State Police at no cost. Very thankful of that. The DCAM study that was mandated in our master plan cost approximately $800,000. That was done about a year and a half ago, and I'm happy to say that we're ready to move forward with this facility if we can get the funding for it. We looked at 12 sites and did a feasibility study, and exit 7 was definitely the area that is most centrally located. There are really three priorities that I need to bring to your attention. Personnel. Simply put, we need more troopers. Retirements and attrition have brought our ranks down to some of the lowest levels we've seen. At the same time, there are retention issues. This is just not a Rhode Island State Police issue. This is an issue across the United States. We all watch the news. We all know exactly what I'm talking about. Although they're challenging times for all law enforcement, Rhode Island's no different, but the Rhode Island State Police is a different agency, and we're fortunate to have top caliber candidates that I'm confident would add to our value in the state. We also will be continued training consistent with the best practice and accreditation standards in our in-service training program. The next priority is facilities. I've spoken pretty much detail on this, but really, and to recap, the renovation of the Portsmouth Barracks, assigned troopers to the East Bay, one of our top priorities. Close the Wickford and Hope Valley Barracks due to health and safety concerns. There's lead paint, there's asbestos, there's mold, and there's water in the basements of those two barracks. And hopefully begin the consolidated Southern Barracks construction. Another major priority of this agency is body-worn and in-car camera systems. There are 49 states with state police agencies. Hawaii does not. They have a Bureau of Investigation. They do not have a state police or a highway patrol. There are only 3 state police agencies without any camera system: New York, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. New York and New Hampshire are currently going to be under contract for camera systems, so that would leave Rhode Island not under contract. We have done a pilot program, and we're ready to implement. The 5-year cost would be $2.5 million in equipment plus $1.8 million in FTEs needed to pull this program off. The FTEs would be 2.6 positions, and what that would be is a 0.6 legal counsel, a paralegal full-time, and an IT person full-time. And that's at a minimum. Connecticut has dozens assigned to this type of FTE program. The reason for that is the APRA request will be increased once we have a body-worn and in-car camera systems. But more importantly than all of this, we'll improve the transparency to the citizens we serve, and also it will provide accountability for the troopers that are here. In conclusion, I would once again say this very respectfully. I am extremely proud to lead this great agency. In the past 96-year history of the state police, every trooper that has ever worn our uniform has inscribed on his hat badge these 6 words: in the service of the state. That's our motto, and we live by it. We never let the citizens down, and we never will. The citizens of this great state should be very thankful and proud of the men and women of the state police and the Department of Public Safety. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you, Colonel Manny. We certainly appreciate your time today to, present this. And Mr. Clerk, please confirm, we don't have any either call-in witnesses or submitted testimony, do we?
That's correct, Chairman.
Okay. So we'll just go around the horn with the subcommittee members here. We have Senator Acosta, Senator De Palma, and Senator Sosnowski. I'll open it up. Senator Sosnowski, any questions?
Basically a comment at this time, Mr. Chairman, if I may. First of all, I want to make a point of thanking Colonel Manny for his presentation, but also for the service to the state of Rhode Island. It's been an especially difficult year for everyone in Rhode Island, and I really have to thank you, Colonel, for the work you did, especially to help Block Island, and have continued to help Block Island. And now they have a new police chief, which I'm very pleased about. But the service, a lot of folks don't understand how much you and your personnel did to maintain safety out on Block Island. It's extremely appreciated. I can't thank you enough. With that, I'll go back to the budget, but I wanted to begin by saying that.
Thank you for your kind words, Senator. Thank you.
Any other senators have questions or comments? Senator De Palma.
Thank you, Chairman. Colonel, thank you for everything you do. As same thing Senator Sosnowski said, it's we value what you do. We do appreciate what you do, and you need you to do what you do. With regards to, while it's not my district, it's on Aquidneck Island, the Portsmouth Barracks, I think not just because we want you there at the Portsmouth Barracks, but I think your presence in the East Bay, Aquidneck Island, obviously with the Twin River, there was a presence there a while when the continued presence on 24 when that was happening. After a number of months, it went away. So having the presence in the East Bay, Aquidneck Island, Senator 70th District would be, I believe, invaluable. So I support that. The specific question, and you talked about bringing on the additional troopers, and having seen some of this go around a few times over the number of years, I think we need to look at what's the, I'll say the long-term approach with regards to the staffing that you need to accomplish the mission of the organization. So not for today, but I'd ask that as you think moving out, you don't necessarily know who's going to, you know who's going to retire when they have to retire because of the mandatory retirement. As you indicated, you know when some people might retire. I'd ask that we think about let's plan out the 2, the 4, the 6, the 10 years, because you know when the mandatory retirement comes that those folks are still around. How do we ensure you're fully staffed when you need to, as opposed to, I know you're proactive, not that you're not proactive, but how do we become more proactive and plan out? So from a General Assembly perspective, the resources you need, you'll have. So that would be an ask of you. But the specific question with the new troopers coming in, and we've talked about this quite a bit in the past, the cyber crimes unit, the cybersecurity side of things. Can you talk a little bit about that? And unfortunately, I do have to go to I will be back for another part of the meeting. Of the new folks coming in, how many of the folks will be assigned to the cyber unit?
So, Senator, those are great questions. One of the first questions I was asked by Governor Raimondo, Secretary Raimondo now, was how big should the state police be? And after 2 years and several months of being the superintendent, I can say with certainty that the Rhode Island State Police, with the responsibilities we have, should be in the 300 to 325 mark. The patrol area, we pretty much have that down now, where we have enough patrol. But the Detective Bureau needs major expansion, especially in the areas you're talking about. There are 3 units. The Detective Bureau is extremely busy. They work so hard every day. But there's 3 units that really I could double in size and still have more. One is the Internet Crimes Against Children, which is protecting Rhode Island's most vulnerable, our children. They are extremely busy, and they make some very important arrests. The Financial Crimes Unit. It's called Financial Crimes, but really it's a public integrity unit, and they're used all over. And the Cyber Crimes Unit as well, which falls under our computer crimes. That is one area that needs major expansion. I am not a computer guy, I'll be the first to admit, but I'll tell you it's humbling watching them work and what they do, because these are the crimes of the future that we need to build on. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Senator Costa, you had a question related to the facilities?
Yeah, thank Mr. Chairman for allowing me to join today, and thank you, Colonel, for your presentation. I just had a follow-up on the barracks slide. So I completely understand the need for the new barracks. I was just wondering if the old ones would be decommissioned, if the agency would be giving up that property, if it would be transitioning it to something else, or if it would turn into a vacant lot.
Thank you, Senator. That is also a very good question. Part of the plan is, so the Hope Valley and Wickford barracks would be turned over to the state, where they could either renovate and put other state agencies in there. The Hope Valley Barracks is on the Wood River, which is a very valuable piece of property. It could be open space. Whatever the state chooses to do with it, it's state of Rhode Island property. It's not state police property. The reason we kept the Portsmouth Barracks is because there's a large tower behind it, communications tower, which is critical infrastructure for the East Bay. Even if we, say, sold the Portsmouth Barracks or gave it away, we would still need to keep that tower there because of the, once again, the critical infrastructure as it relates to communications for the whole East Bay section. I can't emphasize enough, the barracks look beautiful on the outside. We all love the look of that old brick building. I loved working there. I worked at every single barracks. But they do not, they are not conducive to modern policing today. The jail cells are right next door to the dispatch room, where the prisoners walk right through the dispatch room and right into a jail cell. Once again, we've had issues with mold, with asbestos, and water damage. Thank you.
Okay, well, Colonel, I've got a couple questions. One of them dates back, I mean, we didn't have the opportunity to talk last year, but the year prior, there was a lot of discussion related to, primarily with the sheriffs, and the long-term absences from a fairly significant portion of the staff out on disability or whatever. And I guess that was causing several problems, not the least of which is while they're out on this long-term absence, those jobs go unfilled. You can't hire somebody into it because you're expecting someone to come back. In some cases, this went on for months and even years. And I'm wondering, how has that circumstance improved over the last couple of years since we last discussed this?
Yes, sir. I'm happy to state it has improved. Chief DeCesare, who's in charge of the sheriffs, he monitors this. Of course, we still have some that have gone back years and years that we work every week to get them either back, which is probably not going to happen, or get them to retire. And we have made significant progress in that. I will tell you this, sir. During COVID, I would visit just about every state building almost every week. One of the agencies I'm most proud of is the sheriffs. They went to every building. Department administration needed help with security and COVID screening, and the sheriffs stepped up without going to a union, without trying to get out of this additional work, and screened people coming into the buildings, transported COVID positive patients. The new sheriff's agency that I'm seeing today, I'm very proud of. They're such professionals. So we are making significant progress.
So even in the courts, there's plenty of sheriffs to cover all the courtrooms and make sure that that the courthouses are run properly?
Well, sir, that's a different issue. As far as staffing, we are short in sheriffs.
Yeah.
And we're constantly trying to get more sheriffs. I think we're 19 down from the FTE count that we need for the sheriff's department. That's something, once again, we're continually trying to recruit and retain and hire great people to come on to the sheriff's department. Okay.
Well, I think my last question was related to the barracks. I know for a while there was some sort of a plan, perhaps it was just temporary, where you're going to use a couple of different places in the East Bay to operate out of. One of them is the northern approach to the Mount Hope Bridge, and there was another place too, rather than reopen the Portsmouth barracks. So what happened there to change your mind on that?
Yes, sir. When we last spoke, I was going to have 3 substations, one in the town of Exeter, one in Jamestown, and one in Bristol. Once we realized that Portsmouth Barracks is critical to the infrastructure of communications, which I've already explained,
Yeah.
we realized we needed to keep Portsmouth open. So we are going to do a refurbishment of the barracks, put 12 people there, which would not require 2 out of the 3 of those substations.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's all the questions I had. Anybody else, anything else to talk to the Colonel about? Okay, hearing none. Colonel Manny, thanks for everything you do, everything public safety is doing. nice presentation today. I think what you're asking for in your budget is very clear, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Okay, so I guess next, Joe, unless you've got something, we're going to get right to Mr. Attorney General, who I'm looking at right now. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, Senator, doing fine, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.
Let me begin by saying thank you for the time today and for allowing me to make a presentation. It was great to sit through Colonel Manny's presentation as well, since we work so closely with them, and it was great hearing from him as well. You know, let me start by saying that I believe that this office has never been stronger. It is a group of highly motivated, really talented lawyers and professional staff that I think are doing great work on behalf of the people of the state, and that work continued right through COVID-19 because of the nature of this work on the criminal and the civil side. That work continued. We were able to go remote to some degree. And yet we still had to process background checks. We had to be in court, particularly on the criminal side. And, you know, the office, like many Rhode Islanders, paid a price. We had nearly a third of the office either in isolation or in quarantine over the course of the last year. And yet the mission has gone on, and I'm incredibly grateful to the people of this office. Look, the public and the General Assembly expect a lot of this office, and they should. It's our job to protect public safety and to do it in a fair and responsible way. It's our job, particularly in our civil division, to advocate for the public on health care and environmental protection, consumer protection, insurance, and much, much more. As you know, we defend the state in our civil division, defend the state against actions brought against state employees, but equally, if not more importantly, defend the decisions of the General Assembly on matters of policy. Things like truck tolling, things like continuing or evergreen contracts, things like sports betting. You know, frankly, policy decisions that are not mine to make, and yet our office defends them. And so our authority is broad, but our responsibility is broad as well. And we're a small office. You know, we have 100 lawyers here. About 70 of them are doing criminal work, and about 30 are doing civil work. You know, in the governor's budget, he allocates 4 additional FTEs to this office. Our request was for 8. I'm grateful for the governor for submitting a budget with 4 FTEs. I would contend, nevertheless, that all 8 are necessary, and it's where I want to spend some of my time with you today. The reality is right now we are handling in Superior Court alone over 14,000 pending cases. That is a tremendous, tremendous number of cases. Some of that is because when we arrived at this office, my administration found a significant backlog. And so if you look at the numbers of cases charged over the last decade, they have routinely been between 5,000 and 6,000 felony cases per year. In 2019, we charged 8,764. So where it's typically 5,000 to 6,000, in 2019, to catch up with that backlog, we charged 8,764. So we're dealing with that right now, but it's not just a one-time event. I mean, the reason that backlog existed is because this office simply didn't have the number of personnel to adequately process those cases, meaning screen them at the lawyer level to make sure that they got into the system in a timely way. When they don't, that's bad for victims, and it's bad for defendants as well, because they don't know where their case stands. So the work in the criminal division is incredibly high. You know, one of the things I want to talk about too are caseloads. You know, I was in this office from 1996 to 2002 before I became a federal prosecutor for nearly 15 years. And when I was here, if you were a lawyer here, you didn't crack 100 cases unless you were in the narcotics unit. Today in this office, in the special victims unit, that deals with such significant cases as child molestation, sexual assault, felony domestic violence. Our lawyers in that unit are carrying, on average, over 160 cases each. In the drug unit, it's well over 200. Those case numbers are unheard of, they're unprecedented, and frankly, they cannot be sustained. There will be problems along the way, and those problems will inevitably result, I believe, in victims not getting the kind of justice that they are entitled to. I will tell you that in 2020, our district court unit, which is handling misdemeanors, handled over 4,000 cases. The previous high was 3,060 in 2019. So I don't think these trend lines, unfortunately, are going down. In many ways, they are going up. I want to talk a little bit about the civil division. I think the work of the civil division is sometimes unrecognized in terms of its importance to the people of the state. Let's talk about defending the state in the first instance. We right now have 573 cases where we are defending the state where the state has been sued. Our exposure, as we calculate it as a state, is $67.7 million, meaning we could be on the hook for as much as $67.7 million as a state if we don't adequately defend those cases. You know, that leaves out what I've already mentioned, which is defending the constitutional related matters that I know you and the General Assembly care so much about. Again, I'll tick off a few of them. Truck tolling, sports gambling, continuing contracts, policy decisions made by the General Assembly and by the governor that when they are challenged in court, my office must defend. We also spend a lot of time counseling the General Assembly on both sides of the aisle. Some of those questions come in from the minority, some come in from the majority. They come in from the Senate side. They come in from the House side. You know, I pretty routinely personally get calls from legislators that are concerned about one issue or another. That's before them. And so that counsel function for the state is one that takes a fair amount of time. But I think one thing that is a critical problem for us is being on offense for the people of the state. I can tell you that the healthcare challenges in this state have never been greater. The workload in this office when it comes to healthcare has never been greater. The General Assembly was good enough back in the 2000s, early 2000s, to establish in this office the healthcare advocate position. That is one FTE. I have today no fewer than 4 people working healthcare. And I don't think anyone has to look very far to figure out why that is. I have a proposed merger. We have a proposed merger on the table involving Lifespan and Care New England. We have a significant matter involving Eleanor Slater Hospital. And we have the matter involving Prospect Medical Holdings, which in Rhode Island terms is Roger Williams Hospital and Our Lady of Fatima. I simply can't do that work with one person. It's one of the reasons I asked for additional FTEs. For me to adequately defend the people of the state and advocate on their behalf and be the kind of regulator the people of the state need, I need the ability to do that. And so we have pulled those individuals from other places in the office, but that is something which, quite frankly, is simply not sustainable. There's a lot of other work on the civil side that we need to do that hasn't, frankly, been done in the past. One example is on the environmental front. I know all of you have been following the work of the office. We have been very active in that space, whether it's going after polluters or, frankly, making sure that the regulatory processes that exist in the state are being done in such a way that it robustly protects Rhode Islanders. So look, that work continues and will need to continue, and I really believe that we need the FTEs that we've asked for to be able to do it adequately on behalf of the people of the state. I just want to mention one other component of the office because I think sometimes it flies a little bit under the radar. Our BCI office, which does background checks for Rhode Islanders, has worked really hard in the past year. They did 52,000 background checks in 2020. 52,000 background checks for Rhode Islanders in 2020. We do about 300 window transactions a day. Right through COVID, we did that work, and I'm really, really proud of the work that's been done down there. I want to just mention just a couple of other things, and then obviously I'd welcome and prepared any questions you have. Look, I think I talked a little bit about sort of new work on the civil side, consumer protection, environmental work, healthcare. On the criminal side, we are also expanding our mission, and I think in a way that is both responsible and, frankly, looking at our role as a prosecutor in a way that's somewhat different. I really believe that we have to take a holistic approach to the criminal justice system. It's one of the reasons why, after I was elected as Attorney General in 2018, I went to Presiding Justice Gibney in the Superior Court and asked if she would partner with me in coming to the General Assembly and asking for standing up a diversion court. Well, Presiding Justice Gibney was a willing partner in that effort. The General Assembly and I'm grateful for this, saw the value in that effort, and we have stood up a diversion court in 2020, and it has been, I believe, incredibly successful. 25% of all our felony filings, 25% of all our felony filings last year ended up in diversion, and that's exactly where those cases need to be. That's exactly where those cases need to be. It gives those individuals in that court an opportunity in lower level felony cases to get it right and potentially avoid a long-standing felony conviction hanging around their necks as they go into the future. And it allows us to focus our efforts on really the matters in the criminal division that really are really important for us to focus on, including gun violence. So I wanted to bring that to the subcommittee's attention. I also want to point out our work around expungements. There are a tremendous number of people in Rhode Island who are eligible under the laws that exist today to have their record expunged. Their inability to make that happen prevents them from getting, among other things, the kind of employment that they could get to help themselves and their families achieve a better future, whether that comes down to housing or healthcare or simply money in their pockets. Since I became Attorney General, through our expungement clinics, both in person and online, we've helped over 600 people figure out whether they're eligible for an expungement, and if they are, get them to the point where they can make that happen. So that's, that requires resources as well. I love doing that work. I think it's incredibly important, but it's another mission that we've taken on here because I think it really matters and it's work that we should be doing. So look, I'll leave it there. I want to thank you for your time, and of course I'm here and willing to answer any questions you have. And Kerry Baker, who is our terrific CFO, is also along to answer any questions you might have. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, General. Thank you for being here. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. I'll start it off just with a general comment that all of the activities and efforts you ran through and the additional FTEs you're looking for and all that, in the face of that, this is a budget hearing, and the first thing that I look at are the numbers, and yours year over year have been remarkably consistent in terms of the resources your department receives. So, there's something magical with your management happening there that you can do all of this, ask for additional personnel, additional FTEs, and your budget request is the same as it was in 2020. That sort of covers the waterfront in terms of fiscal questions, I think. Any other? That's really all I have. Any other?
Senator, could I just respond to that very briefly? One thing I neglected, a point I neglected to make, and I should have, and my team will be upset with me for not making it. One of the reasons why I believe these 8 FTEs would be warranted here, even in these tough budget times, is I believe that the additional money that our lawyers could bring in as part of our multi-state work would pay for those positions. So there would be a net zero on our balance sheet. I'm really confident of that. A couple of years ago, the legislature, we were able to turn $6 million back to the legislature to fill a budget hole based on work we had done. The greater role we can take of that multi-state work with our fellows attorneys general around the country, the more we can bring back to the state. So just to be very quick about it, the larger role you play, you get a bigger percentage of the overall recovery. And so we are very confident, and we've made this point to the governor, as well as to, I know, the fiscal staff of both the House and Senate, that we believe that these FTEs that we're asking for would pay for themselves.
Okay, fair enough. Senator Sosnowski.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, General, for being here and for your presentation. I would echo Senator Seveni's comments about the fiscal management is outstanding in your department, and also the work that your department does is just fantastic. My only question is, and you just basically answered it, but would your request for 4 more FTEs, would that be, do you feel that, obviously you feel that's sufficient? That was just my question. With all the additional duties, it seems that the Attorney General's office is doing and accomplishing well. obviously you feel that the number of that request is sufficient. That's just my question, if you feel that you would need more than that, or that would be fine.
Well, look, Senator, I'm grateful for the question. I try to be respectful of the situation that the state is in, and I know you are in, as trying to manage the state's fiscal challenges. Certainly our office is small relative to our peers around the country in terms of our staffing. I think there are two things that are really driving, why I asked for 8. I think 8 is a starting point. And those positions, I believe, will pay for themselves. And I will say this, I think we've built a really strong team here. One thing that I've really been committed to, is recruiting and hiring a really strong staff. When you hire strong staff, as we've been able to do here, you're able to do more. You're only as strong as your weakest links, frankly. Did this office because of lots of reasons. They're lawyers after all. Starting lawyers here make $62,000 a year. That's a lot to many Rhode Islanders, but in the legal market, that's a pretty low number. So we know there's going to have turnover. So what we know we have to do is really recruit really strong staff, and we've been able to do that. Do I think 4 is sufficient? I don't. I think 8 will really get us to where we need to be at this time. And I feel comfortable, again, asking for 8 because I believe that we can effectively pay for them through our multi-state recoveries by, frankly, suing bad actors around the country with our fellow AGs and taking more of a leadership role there. But I'm proud of the work that we're doing. We really have expanded our portfolio, not just on the criminal side in the areas that I mentioned. I mean, this office was not doing expungement clinics before 2018. I think that concept would have been very foreign, before that time. So that requires work, staff to handle those applications as they come in. But really, where I really see it is on the civil side. We could be much more robust in so many ways. One place where we're not working to the extent I'd like us to be is in energy. I think this office really needs to step up its work on behalf of Rhode Island consumers in the context of energy. So what do I mean? I mean, if I can't understand my own utility bill, and I'm not just talking about electric, it could be cable, it could be satellite TV, it could be phone, whatever. If I can't understand it, if the charges I don't really understand, how can I expect Rhode Islanders to understand them? And how can we be sure that they're fair and right? And we're working to build space there. That's part of what these FTEs will do, but we certainly need more bandwidth there, no pun intended. Insurance, the office objected very strongly to Blue Cross and neighborhoods a request for an increase in insurance rates on the individual market last summer as people were losing their jobs and would have to go out and buy insurance themselves. I think we need a much stronger voice there. This office had not typically been heard there before. There's another place we can step up our game. Certainly, again, if you're following articles in the press, as I know you are, the environmental challenges in the state are only going up. As we make sure that things don't come online that could really impact, the safety and health of Rhode Islanders. Look, after our people, our environment is our greatest asset. We have to protect it. And I really believe this office can be really effective there. And I talked about healthcare. I cannot overstate the number of resources that we need to protect healthcare in this state. I spend a tremendous amount of my personal time on healthcare just to be, I hope, some value added. So your question is well placed. I'm grateful for it, but I hope that begins to answer some of it.
Yes, if I may. Yes, thank you, General. Also, I'm glad that you brought that up about the energy issues. First of all, thank you very much for your scrutiny of the actions of CRMC having to do with Champlain's Marina. I'm very appreciative of that, representing Block Island. But also, as far as the energy issues, as we all know, how they're rapidly changing with more renewables, and I thank you for mentioning that and your willingness to be working on those issues as well, because that will be a dynamic issue in Rhode Island as we move forward to achieve our renewable energy goals. So that's it for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, General.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Anybody else? Any questions for the General? Okay, hearing none, I believe there is no testimony to talk about. Well, Mr. Attorney General, I think that's a wrap. And thank you very much for spending some time with us today. I know you're busy, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate your time very much.
All righty, I believe we're adjourned.